Everyone. It's night time when I'm recording this video, but well, you guys will be able to see this video during lesson probably tomorrow. All right, so maybe I just want to begin with a recap on the Treaty of Versailles. Why the Treaty of Versailles actually started, it came about in the first place. So we remember, we just do a very quick recap on what basically had transpired in Europe during that period of time. And then we will move on to talk about the different the different terms of the treaty, and also, of course, going into why the League of Nations actually failed. So now we go back here again. Okay, we return back to where we talked about at the beginning. Why did the war actually happen in the first place? First of all, we look at the competition for colonies. Okay, we do know that the British, the French, the Dutch, the Germans basically were competing for different kinds of colonies all over the world, be it in Africa, be it in Southeast Asia, or basically they wanted the resources. They wanted what the resources, the whatever resources there were during at these pieces of land. And of course, going back to Southeast Asia, your spices, the French wanted that, as we have learned, the French wanted to access China to basically have all the different kinds of trade there. The British basically coming down Southeast Asia, the French looking at Vietnam at that point in time, the Dutch looking at the East Indies, and of course the Germans were actually trying their best to take a share of the pie as well. So these are things that are not new, and especially when we looked at it in book one. And eventually this was something that created a lot of what we call tension. Okay, I'm sure you all remember the word that I think this is something we talked about previously, and Marcus brought up the word tension, or was it I know it's one of those sitting behind, either Marcus or Jaden brought the word tension. Really created some form of tension there. Okay, and to add on to this tension, there was this thing called the arms and the naval race as well. Arms, of course, refers to weapons. Okay, arms, of course, refers to weapons here. Okay, we look at arms in terms of weapons, and of course, naval here refers to your navy. Of course, I am not referring to that little hole just at your belly there, which basically mine protrudes quite a fair bit. Yeah, but anyway, that's the point. The point is that they're looking in terms of the arms and the naval race. You will basically see these terms coming out again as we look at European history as time goes by. So basically, they wanted to show who was better. Okay, who had the better building power, who was able to build better weapons, who was able to build a better navy in that sense there. Okay, and there was this race to become even better, one better than the other, who becomes better than who and stuff like that. And of course, the naval race. The naval race at that point in time, the British had a very strong dominance in terms of the navy, and the French and the German were trying to catch up with them, and the British were trying their best to ensure that they do not lose steam in terms of being the top, okay, right on top, and that naval superiority there. Okay, so these were two of the reasons, and as I mentioned, tension, okay, was coming up very strongly. Okay, this big word there, and to add to that tension a lot more, remember with the two alliances we talked about, the Triple Entente, okay, and the Triple Alliance, okay. So this was the one that we were looking at that point in time. This was, if you remember, after the assassination of the Archduke, this was what actually caused the World War to happen, because of different alliances that were going on at that time. Because of that, so we basically have the Triple Entente, where you have Britain, okay, you had France, and Russia, okay, Russia. And of course, the Triple Alliance, you basically have Germany, okay, Austria-Hungary, as well as Italy. Okay, now eventually Italy also pulled out. They kind of they eventually joined the British because they were given some perks and stuff like that. That was why they were also involved. That was also why, if you remember, they were involved in the Paris Peace Conference as well. So you see, right, with all these alliances that were going on, it basically shows that people are very suspicious of one another. There was this idea that, oh, well, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what basically is going on. I need to have friends here just in case the other side attacks me. So there was this sense of suspicion. And this suspicion led to some form of tension as well. Okay, and of course, the idea of nationalism, we talked about the fact that there were those the small speaking communities, Serbia, Bosnia, so places like Serbia, okay, Bosnia and stuff like that. Okay, so these were actually trying to fight for independence. They wanted to move away from the previous German empire. Sorry, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Okay, and at the same time, Russia wanted to control them as well. So there were a lot of things that were going on, and of course, the assassination of the Archduke. Okay, the assassination of the Archduke. Okay, created this opportunity. Okay, created this opportunity for somebody to take the blame. And of course, because the person that actually killed the Archduke was a Bosnian nationalist, in that sense, that rebel, in that sense, rebel force. They actually pinned the blame on the Bosnians, which was actually under the Serbs. And yeah, and let me see if I got this right or not. So yes. So Austria-Hungary wanted to use this opportunity to establish their control again over Bosnia and Serbia. Yeah, so I beg your pardon. It was a Serbian who actually I said Serbian, right? So the Serbian actually wanted to basically kill. He was the one who killed the Archduke. Okay, and because of that, the Austrian Hungarian Empire wanted to ensure that they kept their control over this group of people, and as a result of that, they basically wanted to have launch a war against Serbia. Okay, and basically that created the whole start of the issue lah. Okay, that's why you actually have the First World War that started off. So as the war progressed and stuff like that, well, we do know eventually the Germans were the ones who lost, and they were the ones who were made the scapegoat. Okay, through this, right, if you remember, give me a second, sorry. So the Germans basically, they were the ones who, of course, if we talk about the impact of the war, okay, the impact of war was great lah. Okay, we talk about the loss of lives. Okay, we talk about loss of lives. Okay, a great deal of lives that were lost, and eventually the winners. Okay, the winners. Yeah, sorry, okay, the winners of the war generally were okay. The winners, okay, were the powers, the British, the French. Okay. Now the reason why Russia was not part of this, the French, this is not Danish, it's not Stench also, the French. And the reason why the Russians basically did not was because at that point in time, the communists actually did take over them. They were still fighting an internal battle. The Russian Revolution was actually going on at that point in time, which we will look at after this lesson. So the next online lesson you will see me again. Hi, it's on Friday. Give you a brief background. I'll give you a brief background into the rise of Stalin, what happened in Russia at that point in time. So this is the reason why they actually pulled out of the alliance midway through the war, because they were trying to fight. They were trying to fight on their own end as well, because the emperor, or what they call the Tsar, actually abdicated or put his throne aside. He did not want to take his throne. So because the British and the French, they were the main winners. Okay, and you will see Japan, Italy, all part of the agreements and everything. Later on, we will talk about it in a much later chapter. So because of this, right, history generally, right, the victors always call the shots. Okay, the people who won always call the shots. And I think based on what we've seen so far, we really want to talk about the fact that the British, okay, they wanted to weaken the Germans. Okay, they wanted to weaken Germany, but not to the point that they couldn't grow themselves again. Okay, economically, the British wanted the Germans to be able to rise up again, at least to sustain themselves substantially again. But the French, okay, as we know, the French actually wanted Germany to really weaken Germany a lot more. Okay, weaken Germany a lot. Okay, and I think based on what we've seen so far, if you actually look at your textbook on page 5, you will see that France, Germany, they basically are neighbors. They actually share a border. And because of that, and the thing is that France, they wanted to take back this place called Alsace-Lorraine. You remember this, Alsace-Lorraine. And the French generally were like, they wanted to take back what they have lost to the Germans, sharing that border as well. Security was an issue for the French if the Germans rose up in power again. Okay, and especially when they shared that border, anything could go wrong. So the French wanted to ensure that the Germans didn't have enough opportunity to rise up to the point where they actually could attack the French again. All right. On the other hand, you get this guy, suddenly got this Frank Carmin, United States. They were very isolationist. That means they were kind of like, they were kind of like, isolationists. They kept to themselves and everything. They eventually ended up in the war. And this guy called Woodrow Wilson, Woodrow Wilson, who was the president of the US, This president, dude, he wanted world peace, he wanted world peace, I draw the finger, world peace, world peace, peace, I don't know, it's bad, my drawing is horrible. So basically, he came out with the 14 points, Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, that basically talk about a plan for world peace, he talked about this idea that the smaller countries should be given self-determination, and that a League of Nations, basically to help out in the world, should be formed. So that was basically the whole point here. Why the British, the French, and UK, basically US had a very, very different view of things. Moreover, the US was actually very far away. So in terms of that security thing, it really didn't bother them a lot. So I mean, if you were French and you were the US, naturally, if you were the French, you would want to be bothered a bit more about the idea of security. And it was very scary, You had someone at your border who was like, wow, so strong, So the French was generally very concerned about that. Unlike the US, they were very far away. They didn't have to bother about that kind of things. So in terms of the treaty, the most important one here, the most important one here is this, as what we have talked about, the War Guilt Clause, The War Guilt Clause basically brought about this idea of humiliation, embarrassment to the Germans. At that point in time, there was a government called, they actually installed, because the emperor, or what we call the Kaiser of Germany, basically abdicated as well. He also left his throne, and there was actually a very small government in Weimar, this place in Germany called Weimar. And they set up a government, and they said, okay, look, we're going to take care of the whole of Germany, ha ha ha. And what happened was that they eventually formed the government, and they signed this treaty. And they signed the whole Paris Agreement. They signed the Treaty of Versailles in November. And from there on, they were known as the November criminals, because they were the ones who actually felt that they were traitors of the country. Germany felt that the government was a traitor of this, they were the traitors of the country, signing the German life away in that sense there. So this basically caused the idea of humiliation, as you all remember. And also there was this idea of demilitarization. What is this word? You will hear this word very often as well. Usually when we talk in history, means to take away. To take away. Militarization basically means to have the ability to have weapons. To have weapons. So to militarize a place means that you are basically giving them, like, you produce weapons for war and everything. This is something that you will see later on when you look at Hitler, where he remilitarized Germany after this demilitarization. So when you see the word demilitarization, DE, it always refers to taking away something. Like promote and demote. Demote means to take away your rank in that sense there. So demilitarization, as remember, we look at this, they were only allowed 100,000 men, in the army. They were only allowed to have, if I'm not wrong, 6 boats, right? Let me just double check. Navy was 15,000, in strength. No Air Force. No Air Force, no submarines. And they also were not allowed to have tanks. So take note of this. And eventually these were issues, because they were somehow or other, right? The treaty, the people there, they felt, okay, give you 100,000 army, Navy 15,000. Is there for you already. Enough to defend yourself. Enough to defend, but not enough for you to rebuild. Not enough to rebuild to the previous glory again. So this one you must understand. Not enough to rebuild to the previous glory again. Then you basically have this one about the war reparations. They had to pay hell of a lot of money. Exactly 6,600 million pounds. It's hell of a lot of money at that point in time. So they also had these were the major terms, the territorial reductions. You remember we talked about this, the colonies in Africa were taken away. Okay, colonies in Africa taken away. They basically had Alsace-Lorraine returned to France. Okay, Alsace-Lorraine to France. Okay, the Sarco region was given to France. Okay, to France. Okay, then also they had the colonies were given away to like British and the French in Africa. They also had to, one of the other things in terms of demilitarization was that the Rhineland was also demilitarized. The Rhineland basically is a piece of land right in between Germany and Britain. Okay, so these were actually some of the things. And of course, they needed to give access to Poland. Remember the idea of giving access to Poland, giving access to the sea, okay, to Poland. All right. Okay. So generally, these are the little things we talk about when we talk about the Treaty of Versailles, and of course, what were the terms there. And of course, we also talked about the impact of the treaty, okay, okay, on Britain, on Germany. Okay, this was what I covered during my last lesson. I don't want to go too much into detail. We talk about German humiliation. Okay, humiliation. We talked also about the territorial reductions. This one basically caused their problems, the territorial reductions. Okay, this basically gave them issues with regards to defense. Okay, prestige. And the third one was basically your economy. Okay, just to briefly run through again, defense, because of course they did not have enough troops. In the event that all these major powers decide to attack Germany, the Germans will be at a loss. They could not be able to defend themselves well enough with such a small amount of troops. In terms of prestige, your territories are taken away from you. Very paiseh. They didn't get a chance to actually have any form of prestige there. So actually, in that sense there, the name, the name of Germany will just crumble all the way down. Okay, very crumble in that sense there. And of course, this idea of the economy, remember we talked about very, very often. Why I go and take colonies for what? I want to go for colonies because of this S11, money. S11 is money, please, Singcher, don't get it wrong again. Okay, we want to make sure that the economy, you basically want money. If you take away the territories, that means to say that you take away my resources as well. You take away my resources. Okay, and because if you take away my resources, there will not be enough money. Nope. And it will lead to what we call your economic weakness. Okay, your economic problems and weaknesses. Okay, this basically, right, one of the reasons was actually because of the territorial reductions. Another reason for the economic weakness was because the whole war, right, because there were so many deaths and stuff like that, a lot of the deaths basically were people who were very able-bodied, your men who were able-bodied, who were able to, so basically there was not enough people to take over these able-bodied people in the economy. And as a result of it, right, there was this, the economic growth was actually affected. Okay, you stunt economic growth, and moreover, so you basically have the effects of war, right? That's what we talked about, effects of war. And the second thing was because of the reparations as well. The Germans got to pay so much money. Okay, how do you expect them to pay so much at the same time? You expect them to pay so much money, you took away all the colonies, there's not enough men or people to rebuild the economy again to where it's from. So in that sense, that that there's no way the Germans could have, strengthened their economy in that sense there. And this was actually this particular treaty. If you take a look here right now, the German humiliation, the territorial reductions, the economic weakness. Let's not even go to the, okay, so you even have the, sorry, there's one more I missed out, the military weakness. I think I covered that a little bit just now. The military weakness. Let's not even talk about the self-determination part. Okay. The humiliation, everything. The territorial reduction, one of it was also that they did not allow the no formation or alliance with Austria, right? Remember we talked about this one as well. So when there's no formation of Austria, generally you're not able to use any of the resources there as well. And because of all these little things here, you will find that this actually created a lot of issues because people in Germany were very, very unhappy with all these that actually were on them. Think about it. Why would people be very unhappy about this? If I'm reading your mind correctly, you should be able to get my answer. Because Germany was actually a very great place. So in that sense there, the treaty like this, right, basically was a tight slap in their face. Okay, you slap their face by saying, last time they used to have this such a great empire, but look at this right now, wow, horrible, yeah. This kind of place right now, you want to go and live there? What kind of glory is this? Ha, paise, xia sui. So that's the reason why people were very, very unhappy in Germany at this point in time. And because of this, right, they actually gave rise to a lot of different kinds of political parties and systems, which basically says, okay, look, we are ready to take over this place right now. And of which you have the communists, you basically have people like the Nazis as well. And that is why the impact of the Treaty of Versailles on Germany was one of the most direct factors that caused the rise of Adolf Hitler in Germany as well. But we'll look at it after we finish Stalin, okay, in Russia. Okay, and of course, one of the last ones we have was this idea of self-determination. That was what Woodrow Wilson wanted, right, from his 14 points. So the self-determination part was what Woodrow Wilson wanted. And of course, at the same time, you basically have your different groups there. But the only problem with the self-determination part, again, this will create another reason for the rise of Hitler again. You will see, as I said, the Treaty of Versailles has a very direct impact on Hitler itself. And a lot of you will probably ask me, sure, then if basically why we do the Treaty of Versailles, and then after that we got to do Russia, why we don't do Germany first? It's because you need to understand about the rise of communism and what was going on in Stalin's Russia at that point in time. Because there was a bit of a link between Germany and Russia when we came to the Second World War. This is why we have to cover Russia first before we jump back to Germany. So this self-determination part, they basically carved off the different places, right? Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. If you take a look at your page 11 of your textbook, you will find that there's basically carving of all these different places. Now, they thought that the carving of these places were a very good thing. The only problem was that there were people who were of different nationalities that basically were formed together. Again, going back to the example I gave you the previous time, you basically, for example, this whole area, this whole empire, let's call it the Chao Empire, the Chao dynasty, the Chao Empire. And within this Chao Empire, there are different kinds of people, different races that are living there. Your Xingzhe race, your Weiyue race, your Kate race, your Sharnet race, your Jaden race, okay, your Marcus race, the Sarina race, so the different, the Yvonne race, all this all going around there. And basically, what they wanted to do was they wanted to segregate it properly so that the different people speaking the different languages can actually, that means because they're different culture, different languages, they wanted to split it nicely to the point that you actually give them your culture, people from the same culture, speak same language, all in the same place. But the fact is that the way they carved out the land, okay, the way they carved out the land for these people generally did not allow for that. There were people who were actually forced to live together. Different culture live in the same country. So you wanted all the Weiyues to stay together. But now you have the Weiyues plus the Xingzhes plus a bit of the Kates inside there. So there was still the desire to say, I want to go and live with my people. So you basically have the Kates, the Xingzhes, and the Weiyues here, right? And you have another part, or in this area, you have the majority of the Kates there with a bit of the Sharnets and a bit of the Jadens. You basically don't have that like I want all the kids in this area, I want all the various, no, you don't get that kind of thing. And after a while, right, because there wasn't this clear idea, there wasn't this clear break, for example, it made people frustrated at a point because some of them, especially the German-speaking ones, they really, really wanted to join Germany again. Okay, as per those in Austria as well, the German-speaking Austrians, they really, really wanted to join Germany again. Okay, but the thing is that the way it was being carved out wasn't like this, and a lot of disgruntledness was going on within Europe at that point in time. So you see, at the end of the First World War, even the Treaty of Versailles, even the Paris Peace Conference, there was a whole lot of tension that was created again just because of the Treaty of Versailles. So if you take a look at the situation in Europe at this point of time, it was just preparing the stage yet again for another war. Okay, and it really did happen. You look at the situation right now, nobody was helping Germany. Everything was going downhill for Germany. Now, if you were German, you will feel like, this big burden that was put on us, really, And the thing is that all needed for someone was to go there and say, I hate this, I want to take this away. Let's do something, let's make Germany great again. Let's screw the Treaty of Versailles. And I tell you, it was enough. And that's what Hitler actually did. That's what Adolf Hitler actually did. And the thing is that when we look at chapter 3, you will see very clearly these are different things that Hitler basically played on the German emotion eventually for them to give rise again. Okay, I'll stop here for a time being before I go into a League of Nations. At this point in time, right, please follow the link below for your Google in the Google Classroom, and you'll be directed to another assignment. I'll try to see how I can get a quiz down for you. All right. So I'll just take a short break here. Do that assignment. Once you're done with that, okay, then we'll come back and we look at the League of Nations. All right.